Hey, what's happening with public transportation in the San Francisco Bay Area? I'm Paul Comfort, and on this episode of Transit Unplugged, we'll tell you because we're going to be speaking with Christie Wegener. She's the executive director of the Livermore Amador Valley Transit Authority, or LAVTA, which serves a large region of 3 cities around the San Francisco Bay Area and the suburbs there. She talks about serving BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit, and some of the challenges of working with a large agency. We also talk about the ridership statistics and what's really important to measure when it comes to KPIs. They got a big grant just recently to build a brand new facility right across from the Gillick bus manufacturing plant there. And she's excited about that. They've got 60 buses serving the area. They contracted out with a major contractor. She talks about some of the innovations they've got going on, including working toward cloud-based transit signal priority where they can get better data. And also talks about what they're doing in the kind of micro transit area and what's happening there. I think you'll find this a fascinating interview. And at the end, we're now reserving the end of our podcast interviews, to talk to people about kind of their personal life, right? What do you start your day with? Coffee, tea, or something else? What's your favorite place to visit? What will people be surprised to learn about you? What's the best career advice you've ever received? Those kind of fun questions. We're going to start asking them at the end of every interview. I used to do it a long time ago, and then kind of it fell out. And I know when I listen to podcasts, I really enjoy hearing the personal side of someone. And so we're going to try to add it in whenever I can to these interviews. I know you'll enjoy learning more about that, about our guests coming up. And today, I know you're going to enjoy this wonderful in-depth interview with my new friend, Christie Wegener. She's the executive director of LAVTA. Christie, there's been a lot of talk about getting back to pre-COVID ridership. You and I have talked about that. And, I think you are of the same mind I am. Is that really the right measurement anymore?
Thank you for that question. I struggle with this. I don't think it is. And I think agencies, we are continuously being compared to our pre-COVID numbers. And there's a reason I don't think it's appropriate, particularly out here in the Bay Area, where the travel patterns have changed tremendously. The cost of running service has also changed. It costs us more to operate the same level of service as we're dealing with congestion and whatnot. We've got a tremendous amount of work from home out here. And so I hate to be Debbie Downer, but I don't know if we'll get back up to pre-COVID levels of ridership out here. And so I think we just need to level set and maybe start to inch away from that metric. I haven't been able to do it yet, but I do have hope that we can start a new baseline. So we're not always just looking back and feeling like we're failing and we're not doing good work because we're just not at those 2019 numbers.
I would argue even that ridership as a key performance indicator is a lagging indicator and not necessarily the best one to measure what we do. I mean, It's really the one thing we can't control. I remember when I started in Baltimore, I told everybody, look, I don't really care about ridership as a key indicator of what we're doing. What I want you to do is focus on safety, efficiency, reliability, and world-class customer service. And if you do that, we'll have a great transit system. And hopefully people recognize it and ride it. But what say you?
I couldn't agree with you more. And I really hope that we get to a place where mass transit is considered a social service. And it is okay to have empty buses because people rely on that service to get from A to B. But yeah, I think ridership is secondary. I think you're right. Safety and reliability are also very important. The metric I hate the most is farebox recovery, to be honest with you, because it's like, if you think about that equation, there's so little that we can affect. I mean, the cost drivers for transit are massive. And what you collect in the fare box is minuscule in comparison. And the levers we have to control that metric are limited. We just raised our fares with 16 years or 20 years since we raised our fares. Now we're at $2.50. And that is going to have a minor impact on our fare box recovery ratio. And I think that's okay. In suburban Alameda County out here in the Bay Area, we are challenged to get ridership because we're competing with cars. We love our cars. Parking is free. It's available. It's plentiful. And so it's tricky to get people on transit. The density is also not here. And so I do hope that in the future, we build a tolerance for these empty buses. I hear that a lot from my board. Why do you have these big empty buses? And I have to kind of start to put my scheduling hat on. Well, that bus does something else during its day. It's going to go run a school trip route. So while it might be big and empty right now, it's going to have 60 kids on it later.
Yeah, it's going to a school to pick up kids. Yeah.
Right. It does around 11 first, and then it's going to a school. So But yeah, and it's just hard to get people out of their cars out here. I think it's always been hard, but it's particularly challenging out here in the Bay Area.
Well, tell us some about your agency itself. For those who aren't familiar with LAVTA, the name makes me think of lava. Like my grandkids love that show, The Floor is Lava. So, but I know that's not you. So tell us about your agency, where it's at. Kind of give us a level set.
Yeah, thank you. So Livermore Amador Valley Transit Authority, we are a small operator, one of the 27 transit agencies in the Bay Area.
And for people who don't know, the Bay Area, San Francisco, right?
San Francisco, yes. So we are in eastern Alameda County. We kind of are nestled between the inner East Bay and the Central Valley. So we get a lot of through traffic from commuters from the Central Valley who've chosen to live out there, probably for affordability reasons, that are coming in. We have 60 buses, so, fleet size. Gillig is right across the street from us, so we are a proud Gillig shop. If you ever come out to Gillig, I'll take you to lunch.
That's right. That's where their offices are.
Yes, and so it's great. You get to see buses from throughout the country just zooming around here. And we've got a team of 16 people. So we're a small agency. We contract out our service. Our current contractor is MV. And, we won Agency of the Year 2018, 2019, 2020, either APTA or CTA. We had really great growing ridership. We implemented a network change in 2016 that resulted in increased ridership. We were affected by COVID very similarly to everyone. It's different out here, I think, because our service area is about 250,000. We serve 3 cities, Dublin, Pleasanton, and Livermore. Dublin is the fastest growing city in California based on the 2020 census. It grew, I think, 50 to 70%. And I recently learned that 30% of Dublin residents work from home. It's just a challenging environment. We've got a lot of tech folks out here that are working from home. They can
do their programming from home.
Totally. And we're a BART feeder. So we're nestled between the Central Valley and the Inner East Bay. We feed the BART's Blue Line. And we also connect with ACE Rail, which is the Altamont Commuter Express, which is the heavy rail that runs, I believe it starts in Stockton and it runs all the way to Santa Clara. So we've got interesting travel patterns to try to address. You've got people coming through, you've got people going throughout the Bay Area on transit or in their cars. So, and we carry, let me give you our ridership, about, I think, just over 5,000 trips a day. We are at 1.3 or 1.4 million rides a year. So we're all right. Yeah. We're doing all right.
And your background, you have a long background in planning for transit, right? Tell us about that, how you ended up here at this job.
Oh, my goodness.
Years ago.
I started my career in 2003 as a baby intern for Dr. Beverly Scott. So she was the executive director or general manager, Sacramento Regional Transit. At that time, I was getting my master's in public policy. So I don't actually have a planning background at all. I just have a planning mindset. And so I was getting my master's and my thesis advisor said I needed to get an internship. And he said, well, Dr. Beverly Scott just got this job and she's looking for an intern. So I just took a big pay cut. So this is 2003. I was working as a social worker at that time and made $13 an hour for Sacramento Regional Transit and worked on some of Dr. Scott's projects. Then I just got to meet the people there, the other planners, the schedulers, and learned this is an amazing career. You get to help people. I want to help people. That's how I was raised. I have a spirit of wanting to give back to the community. And so I learned that I could influence how people, their mobility, getting to childcare or their jobs. And so I fell in love with it. So I became an assistant planner and worked there for a couple of years, then made the move to Fairfax County, Virginia, where I started as a transportation planner too. And I learned scheduling. We used Trapeze. I was trained in Trapeze 3.2. It was route mapping with your Thomas Brothers guide was what we used at that time. There was no Remix or all these tools did not exist. And, I leaned into that work. I care about people. I like people. I think that's what maybe sets me apart in some ways. And so I volunteer. I'm out. I'm doing ride checks. I'm learning how to do a PM. I'm going out in the community events. And I just excelled in my career there. I was promoted pretty aggressively. I became a section chief managing, and it was a contracted operation. And it was a piece of the Fairfax County government. So it wasn't a standalone transit agency, but it was we had 3 garages, a huge contract. And so I learned so much there. I needed to come back to California, though. I needed to get my California son. And so I went and came to LAVTA actually as director of planning in 2014.
Okay.
And that was amazing. I learned so much. I led a system redesign, which then resulted in record ridership increases. And that was very special and rewarding.
Yeah, it's satisfying, isn't it? When something
Totally
works out well.
Totally. And then I, for personal reasons, made a move to Samtrans on the peninsula in San Francisco, where I was director of planning there. And the opportunity to come back to LAVTA came up in 2022. And at first I was like, no way am I going to apply for this job. No. Because I wasn't at the C-suite level. I was just a director. And I'm the kind of person that I like to set that bar just a little bit higher than my comfort level. Because I get bored pretty easily. I like stress, keeps me motivated. So I said, I am going to go for this job. And yeah, took 3 interviews and I got the job. So I have been executive director here for almost 3.5 years. I feel like finally I'm getting my groove, but it's a constant learning exercise. So, but I really like it. Our agency is special and we got some really exciting stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. What would you say surprised you most since you hadn't been in the C-suite before, moving from a director to the CEO level? Do you remember? I know it was a few years ago, but
the board management was
I
don't know if it was surprising, but it was the trickiest. Like, what do I take to the board? When? How do I have one-on-ones with them or just the chair? And I erred on kind of over communicating. Like my poor staff, they probably hate me. Yeah. I make them take everything to the board because it's just figuring out where your comfort level is and what depths the board wants to go into. It also can change. Our board, we have 7 board members, 2 from each of the cities we serve and 1 from the county.
Okay.
And of the board that hired me, only 2 are still here. 2 of my current board members were on the board when I was hired, which is wild. So there's a lot of turnover. So there's this constant kind of relearning and luckily for me, I like people and I like to learn about people and I like to learn what makes you tick. And so I'm honing in on that and becoming, I think, a better executive director.
That's good. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? And how do you get funded?
Very similar to a lot of other California agencies. We get TDA, Transportation Development Act, that's sales tax, statewide. We have our little, chunk from the farebox. We've got some special contracted revenue. So we do actually get a chunk of change from our Alameda County Transportation Commission for, we have an affordable student pass program in the Tri-Valley. So we also have a pass program with Las Positas College. That's a junior college in our service area, and all of those students ride free. And then, for capital program, we beg, we borrow, we get state, federal, and local sources. And I will share very wonderful, surprising news. LAVTA received a $64 million LONO last year. 4th highest in the country, highest in California. And so we are now busy I was shocked, very happy. We are going to be building our new headquarters. And so we've been in this current facility since 1990. It was built for 47 buses. We have 60, so we are out of space. And we've been seeking funding to build out our headquarters, which is literally across the street from Gillig. And we got it. So now we're putting those pieces together and putting a shovel on the ground here, hopefully in the next 18 months.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Transit Unplugged podcast. We are so glad you're here. If you're enjoying this show, we know you'll love our other transit industry programs. On Transit Unplugged TV, Paul Comfort explores the food, culture, and transit systems around the globe. You get to see everything. You'll love this show. And every week, we also offer up the Transit Unplugged News Minute, where you can get the latest industry headlines in less than 60 seconds. You can find out more at transitunplugged.com. Now back to Paul Comfort for this edition of the award-winning Transit Unplugged podcast.
So you mentioned that a big part of where your buses go is serving BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit. I guess that's a rail system, right? So What's that like? And, what happens if the bus, like connection protection, they call it, right? Tell us about that.
I love this question. You can take the girl out of the scheduler, but you can't take the scheduler out of the girl. And my poor staff, I am just in the weeds with the scheduling. Serving BART is interesting. It's important. We are the end of the line. There's no BART station in Livermore, but there is one in Dublin and Pleasanton.
Okay.
So most of our routes, we time them to connect with BART. It's really not bus friendly. And the bus has to do this very weird circular pattern. Basically, if a person is exiting the BART they will see their bus in the tunnel. And that's not a bus stop. Basically, the bus has to go do a big U-turn, come back through the tunnel, and it's on its way on revenue service. And so a late arriving BART train and passengers running, they stop and they see their bus in the tunnel and they can't get on it because it's not a designated stop. So back in the day, there were these light bulbs that started to illuminate when the BART train was coming so that the bus operators could see it and wait. We have so much technology available, but I just want those dang light bulbs to work again. Honestly, I just think that let's go back to just a light flashing. We're a small staff here. We've got very bright people, but we don't have the resources like BART does. And they have data on their on-time performance, and they shared that with us, but it's hard to decipher. And basically what I want to understand is just tell me, percentage on-time performance by day of week, by time of day, like late night when the trains are running infrequently and the buses are. Or is there a way that we can get a real-time feed from BART into our dispatch so then they can instruct the drivers to hold? If we don't have those tools or the light bulb doesn't work, then we're forced to add more time to that protection window,
Right?
Which just costs more money. It has impacts downstream. I will also share, we are looking at widening that transfer window just because until more data is available to us, or until that light bulb starts to work again, that's what we got. We are bringing an operator restroom to our bus platform at BART. And I have a hunch that will, with adding more time, transfer time, kind of recovery time at that station, and with the amenities, that will result in improvements in our service. And I think more satisfied customers and happier drivers. So that was something our board just approved a couple of months ago. We are getting a throne bathroom for our bus operators. So I think it's a piece of the puzzle. And yeah, we'll have to see how it works. But connecting with BART is challenging when you don't have data.
That's interesting. Do you all have like an association of those 27 transit agencies where you all meet together and talk about that kind of stuff?
No, we have different group meetings at different levels. Like the big GMs get together, every Monday. The small GMs, we get together every Tuesday. I constantly complain to BART staff about the schedule. I have a line into to the right people, and they keep me updated. But it's unique. BART doesn't go to all 9 counties in the Bay Area. There's a lot of agencies that really don't have the same challenge that LAVTA does. And we are doubly challenged because in an effort to increase riderships, like we all did after the pandemic, BART went after the kind of the non-commuter, like the midday rider, the evening, the weekend rider, and they shifted their service from trains every 15 minutes on weekdays to trains every 20 minutes, 7 days a week. So now we have, less frequency. My colleagues in Contra Costa, they enjoy 10-minute BART trains. And so, that connection isn't as important to schedule. But when you have a train every 20 minutes and you're the end of the line, it's important. So I'm a vocal person, and I believe in reliability. I think we have to, people expect that today. You can watch your pizza being made in real time on an app being delivered to your door. And we have to be better than that. We have to have good real-time information. We have to have reliable schedules. And so that's just a piece of getting people onto transit.
Understood. Let's shift our questions a little bit and switch to the other end of the spectrum. I know you've had some interesting approaches with a TNC partnership and a taxi subsidy program. What's happening there, and what problems were you trying to solve?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was in 2015 when we did our COA, our comprehensive operational analysis. I was director of planning at the time. And we did our market research and to understand where we could capture more riders. And what we learned at that time was it was people going to BART who couldn't find parking because BART parking is full at 7:30 in the morning. What we learned is that people who, were on BART already were more open to trying a different mode. So we said, let's go all in on BART and let's create 2 rapid services that connect to every train. And in order to do that, we needed to take resources from unproductive routes. So we eliminated a route in Dublin and reallocated those service hours to the rapid routes. And then in an effort to not leave the city without any transportation service, we advanced a discount program with Uber and Lyft. So at the time, we were probably one of the first 10 agencies to engage in a partnership like that, because it was, Pinellas, Brad Miller, number one, we all copy Brad. And so we were, I was doing my research and learning about the different models. And of course, as a planner, I overcomplicated it. I wanted to test 2 different let's do this in one area, Dublin, this in another. And what we learned was you got to keep it simple. So we implemented a discount. Basically, it was, we'll pay half your fare on Uber or Lyft, or we had a taxi cab company, up to $5 off for trips that were taken in the city of Dublin. You didn't need to connect to transit. The only requirement was that you use the pool feature, the Uber pool or the Lyft line. And that was fine. That we implemented that. And I'll just say that program has evolved over time. It was expanded during the pandemic to cover the whole Tri-Valley instead of just the city of Dublin. And we did some marketing in 2023 that really took off. A TikTok style marketing campaign. And Ridership went bonkers. And the challenge with that is this program is not funded through grants. It is funded through our general fund. And we can't count the trips. Like there's no NTD box where I can say, I took all these people, so we're kind of giving the service away. But some folks thought that we were. I always worried that we were competing with ourselves, that people would opt to take an Uber versus a bus. And so that always just sort of was in the back of my mind. But because of the increased ridership and the associated costs, we've had to make adjustments to the program. And most recently made a decision to only offer the discount between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. So that change just happened on Friday.
Like underserved times.
Yeah. So, all right. We also have a parataxi program for our ADA riders that pays, I think it's 85% of the trip up to $30. And you can take Uber and Lyft. And that program exists. And that we think is very, very beneficial for our paratransit customers. And that's the beauty of an agency like LAVTA. We're small. We can be nimble. We can do things. Sometimes we fly under the radar. And so we actually had an autonomous vehicle pilot in, it limped along for a few years, dabbled in that. And so, yeah, it's fun. We do get to try new things.
Well, tell me about another one. I heard you're doing something like cloud-based TSP, transit priority. What's that about?
Oh my goodness. So LAVTA was an early adopter of transit signal priority, which is awesome. Because moving buses faster matters, especially when cars are everywhere. So we had an infrared system when I started here as director of planning and upgraded to a GPS-based system. So infrared means, line of sight. Bus has a little widget that needs to see the signal, and then boop, boop, you get your extended green or your shortened red. But that was not always operating well. You have to clean the lenses and that line of sight thing. We want, we're smarter. We have more technology. There's other options. So we moved to GPS, which then kind of used the GTFS speed and the location of your bus to then request priority. And that was fine for a few years. And I, when I was at Samtrans, got to demo a cloud-based system, which was phenomenal. The most magical thing for it is the data, because right now we don't have any idea. You have to go pull a card out of a control cabinet to understand if you got any priority or if a call was made. Interestingly, we have queue jumps in our service area, and I was so excited to come and see a bus use the queue jump, only to learn the operators never used it because they didn't trust it. It was also designed, you're kind of trying to fit transit priority in a landscape built for cars. So it was in a right turn lane and the bus needed to go straight, which is just awkward. It's putting the operator in a place of conflict. And so, we had all these queue jumps that weren't being used. So, and not really good data. So the cloud-based system is remarkable. At Samtrans, we had a 94% reduction in dwell time at one left turn.
Wow.
And that matters. And so we basically, my first year at LAVTA as executive director, had to do some re-education of the board about our autonomous vehicle project and was able to get approval to shift those resources to cloud-based transit priority. And so we are in we're figuring out our procurement, and I'm hoping it'll be live by the end of the year. And that
I can't wait to hear how it's going.
Yeah, me too. I'm hoping a 5 to 15% reduction in travel time. But if I can get that left turn into the BART station, I will be a happy woman.
Yeah. All right. So what else you got going on for the future? Like that's one thing you're working on. Any other big things you got going?
I mean, just building a whole new headquarters,
Oh, that's right.
That's just like, these little things.
Yeah. These little things.
These little things. But, the most important thing is funding for transit. We have a fiscal cliff in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I
BART,
read about that.
Muni, AC Transit, Caltrain. I mean, LAVTA, we have a bit of a structural deficit, but it's more of a gentle slope, not a cliff.
Yeah.
It is imperative that we secure more funding for transit. It will be a very sad world if we don't. It'll be very difficult in the Bay Area if we don't pass. There's a measure that should be on the ballot in November to secure funding for Bay Area transit. So that's very
Yeah.
big.
You'll get involved in that, kind of promoting that?
We are limited
allowed
what
to?
we can do. Yeah, we're limited. What we are doing is going to articulate what our service would look like absent new money.
Okay.
BART has put out, I hate to call it their doomsday plan, but it's doomsday. It is like cutting, slashing service. And
you get in that vicious downward spiral.
Yep. It's just yep. So
hopefully it doesn't come to that for you guys.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. You ready for your lightning round of fun personal questions?
All right. Let's do it.
Quick answers. All right. So coffee, tea, or something else to start the day?
Water first, then coffee.
Then coffee. All right.
With cream. I like my coffee to taste like a candy bar.
What's your favorite place to visit in the LAVTA service areas? Do you have a favorite place?
Oh, that's a great question. I love to go to the downtowns in Dublin, Livermore, and Pleasanton. There's great restaurants.
Oh yeah.
There's also, we have Livermore is the oldest wine valley in California. We've got 50 wineries out here. They're not well served by buses. Yes. Yeah. So again, you have to come out and see Gillig, and I'll take you to my favorite winery. But we can't get there on the bus.
Not yet. All right. What's one thing people would be surprised to learn about you?
I think I mentioned it earlier. I have no background in transportation planning at all. I have background in psychology and sociology.
That's interesting. That may be really good backgrounds for planning because you understand people, right?
People. Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
That's good. What's the best career advice you ever received?
I think you have to lean in. You just can't wait for things to happen to you. You need to step in. You need to volunteer. You need to raise your hand. I don't think anyone ever told me this, but I've never been able to stay in my lane. And I think that has served me well because you learn more. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then people see you, right. And they can elevate you.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I call it being the author of your own life, Obviously we are in a river of life that's taking us places, but you can decide things along that path to jump off here or jump to another log or another boat, whatever. So that's good. Do you have a favorite book or podcast or show right now you want to tell us about? My wife and I just finished binge watching The Pit, from
the good
hospital in Pittsburgh. Yeah, it's amazing ER stuff. Do you have anything cool you guys are watching or reading?
I am terrible. I love 90 Day Fiance reality TV. It's terrible. And I want to read more. I'm starting to read Kristen Hanna fiction stuff. I've been listening to your podcast. So, there you go. But I like Dateline. I like true crime stuff. So,
okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Last question is, if you weren't working in transit, what do you think you'd be doing?
I'd like to be a gardener. I'd like to be a florist. I like to garden. I like to plant things. I like to get my hands dirty. Yeah.
Do you have a garden at your house?
I do, usually. Yeah. I'm starting this year with my yellow tomatoes. I've got some sunflowers and I like to grow different things. Yeah. Last year I grew purple tomatillos, which was that's kind of fun.
Yeah. That's good. All right. Any final closing thoughts you want to leave with us about where you're going at your agency or in transportation in general?
Nothing profound. Yeah, I think, we've got a lot of wonderful things on the horizon. We're also very challenged, like all of us are. It feels like transit's been constantly disrupted in one way or the other, for years and years and years. I am bracing for another, 10 years of a wild ride. I'm looking forward to it.
There you go. That's a great ending. Thanks, Christy. We wish you the very best as you continue to work out there and the floor is not lava.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Transit Unplugged, the world's #1 transit executive podcast. I'm Julie Gates, executive producer of the podcast. Many thanks to the team that makes this show happen. Host and producer Paul Comfort, producer Chris O'Keefe, editor Patrick Emile, associate producer Cindy Raskin. Transit Unplugged is being brought to you by Midaxo, passionate about moving the world's people. If you would enjoy behind-the-scenes insights and updates from the show, sign up for our weekly newsletter, which has links to can't-miss conversations with the biggest names in mobility. Head to transitunplugged.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Transit Unplugged.